Okay. So welcome to the Boulder WordPress Meetup. We meet the third Monday of every month at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We have such a huge, fabulous community. I am so excited to have an incredible panel today. I am joined by Bethany. I'm Angela Bowman, which I guess my name probably shows up on the Zoom. I'm joined by Bethany Siegler, who's been co-organizer of this meetup. We've been doing this for many years now. Like, when are we ever going to stop? It's just too much fun. And we also have Dave Warfel on board, who is another co-organizer, and Ron Broom should be joining us shortly. I'm so delighted that I could put out a Twitter announcement and get so many incredible people just like raising their hand wanting to talk about WordPress 5.9. And there were so many people who wanted to be a part of this that we had to make it a panel discussion. And I love panels because they're exciting. There's so much more lively. We get a lot more input. And all of these people have been so incredibly deeply involved in the project that I think it's great to see their faces, hear their voices, and appreciate how much work has gone into this project. So we are joined with Brian Gardner, who is most well known for having developed the StudioPress or Genesis framework. If you've used Genesis, feel free to raise your hand, do a shout out in the chat. I think we've all used Genesis StudioPress themes at some point in our careers. It's just been such a foundational thing for so many agencies and individuals building their sites. Brian is now principal developer advocate at WP Engine. So we're very delighted to have Brian here today. Courtney Robertson is a web design dev advocate at GoDaddyPro. She's also on the WordPress training team. So kind of that is a perspective that she comes to on this project, is how do we train people up on these new tools? And there's so many amazing training resources that I think are kind of the best kept secret in WordPress. And Birgit Polly-Hack, she is Miss Gutenberg. Like she is everything Gutenberg. She's a WordPress developer advocate. She is the curator of Gutenberg Time. She's the co-host of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. She lives and breathes Gutenberg, so we're just very happy to have her. And Abha Thakor from the release team, she is joining us from London, where it is a little after 1 a.m. She's been working all day on the release candidate 3 for WordPress 5.9, and she's going to talk to us a bit about how you can help with this final preparation week, take part in translating, and just get to know the contributors that take part across the globe. So welcome all 4 of you, and thank you so much for joining us. I would like to start off our session by bringing to your attention the Google Doc that we have shared in the chat, which will be kind of an outline for today's session. I will kind of type as we go along if there's anything that I feel like needs to be added to this Google Doc, since it is just right now a list of links, and if there's more links, I'll put them in there. And we want to start off with Abha talking about how can people test this release. You know, a lot of people aren't going to see it until it comes out and they press that update button. And maybe some people would like to check it out beforehand and maybe even test their own sites, the updates, and maybe just speak to what they'll see if they test just on their own site versus if they test like an existing site with an existing theme versus if they test with one of the themes specifically made for WordPress 5.9, like the 2022 theme, and what kind of help you might need this week with all of that. And I'm going to spotlight you.
And just to let you know, Abha just shared a link in the chat. So grab that link as well as the link in for the document. If anybody didn't see that document link again, I'm going to put that in one more time. And as a reminder, feel free to put any questions in the chat that you'd like. We will try to get to them if they're relevant to the topic we're talking about, we will intersperse them with the questions or the panel discussion. If it's something off topic from the release, but is a question that you have, we will try to get to that at the end. And as always, if anybody would like to anonymously ask a question, they can direct that to me, use the drop-down list and find Bethany, and I will ask that question for you.
Okay, it's all you.
Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, Angela. I've shared a link in the chat, which takes you to all the information that you need to test 5.9. Before anyone tests, particularly if they've never tested before, there's two things that I would suggest. One, never test on a development site. If your site is live or it's a client, this is not a site to test on. It may sound really obvious, but it happens a lot at meetups, and people will go, oh, we'll try this. And it's like, it's still in testing. So the best thing to do is to test on a development site, not a production or live site. You can tell it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So only test on a development site, not a production or a live site. And all the instructions that you need to set up that local install, and there's a tool to help you do that as well, are in the link that I've just shared. And if for the people who are watching this and haven't got access to that link, if you just go to make.wordpress.org and put help test WordPress 5.9 features, you will find this wonderful link written by one of the developers involved in the project. And she's written a brilliant piece about exactly what you have to do. So even if you're really new to this, there is lots of help available. Another way to learn about testing is to just take part. You can come to what we call release parties. When I first came across a release party, I expected cake, wine, and chocolate. And there isn't any, I'm afraid, but you can bring it from your own home and share that. I would suggest not the wine till after you finish testing, because you might find it a little hard to find the green check mark to say your test was complete, but it could be interesting. But release parties happen during the release cycle, and you can find all the dates for in any release on what date will happen. And they normally share it in the core Slack. So if anybody is not already connected to the core Slack and are a developer, this is a really cool place to be. It's on make.wordpress.org, and I'll put some links in when I finished telling you a bit more about it. And the best thing is that release parties, you can just sit and watch and just see how people test. Now, before any release party, we share the information that you'll find in the post that I've shared, which says, you know, update how you set your development site up, and then what you need to do to follow on from there. You can also download directly from a zip file. So all the developers who are on this meetup who are saying, I don't need to use a plugin, there is a plugin available, I can just download a zip file, give me that. We share that in every release party tomorrow. So you get your great opportunity to join tomorrow, and it's in the time zone that you're into for most people who are here today. It's 8 o'clock UTC, 8 p.m. UTC tomorrow. In the Make WordPress core channel, there will be the release party, and that's for release candidate 3. So great time to come and find out a bit more about how to do it. The Angela also asked about the features and to know what you need to test. We are now a week away roughly from the release, so if you're going to test, please do test from tomorrow when we launch RC3. Please come and test that. WordPress is the sum of its contributors. Every release, every single release builds on the contributions that people made across the globe. It would not happen without those contributions, and everybody has played a part. There isn't a we in that sense. It is the project, and from that perspective, everybody who's ever taken part is part of 5.9 when we launch it next week. So if you want to be part of that, or if you want to be part of the next release, which is 6.0, then come and attend our dev chats every week on a Wednesday. They are at 8 p.m. UTC as well. They don't change throughout the year. Daylight saving time just changes around it. And you can easily come and shadow and see, okay, this is what happens. My first bug scrub on WordPress that I participated in was a year ago. And I've led various bug scrubs since. I've led them in different companies before, but not necessarily in WordPress. You do not need to be a WordPress developer that has been in the environment for decades. You just need to have enthusiasm, a willingness to read and see what everybody else is doing, and to contribute alongside everybody else. And believe me, it's great fun. We can make it as easy and as simple for other people to attend and take part. And also, if you've got a feature that you want to see happen, best way to do that is to test the ones that are like it or that you might need, or even better, take part on tickets, fix them, and become a component maintainer and make the difference to what you want to see. How's that for a 1 a.m. enthusiasm, apart from me getting mixed up with development sites?
No, that's great. My question is, I want this party with or without cake. So I'm happy to bring the cake. Where do we get the information about the release party tomorrow?
Okay, so that has already been scheduled. It is at 8 p.m. UTC tomorrow.
And how do people get into it?
So you just hang around the core channel. Sometimes on Slack, on the makewordpress.org Slack. Obviously, there are different Slacks that locales have, but this is the main contributing Slack. And sometimes it may be slightly later if they're testing something and it takes a bit longer, but they will keep people informed. And just join in. And it doesn't have to be anything apart from, hey, I'm going to download to my development site RC3 when it's released tomorrow, and report back. And all you need to do is to literally say which version of WordPress you have running, what that you have upgraded from to RC3, and what you use to do that upgrade. So that might have been the beta tester plugin that we have that is actually really easy to use. And it's easy to use once you set it up beforehand, get a bit of practice in. For non-developers, you can follow along. I'm a marketing team rep, and I'm always encouraging people in the marketing team who are new to tech. This is a great way of doing the practice and learning. You learn more about WordPress behind the scenes and actually what makes it tick and how to improve it by following a release than anything else.
That's amazing.
So come along to the party, come and test.
Okay. I hope you will get some sleep tonight so you're all rested up for the party tomorrow.
I have normal work to do as well yet. So, but yes. But I wanted to come and join you today and come and talk about the wonderful ways people get involved. And if you are not a tester, can I give a big plug to our polyglots, Angela, or at some point during this?
Yes, definitely.
So for the people who are not familiar with the fact that WordPress is available in so many different languages, in fact, more than 100 different languages. It's available because contributors translate it. Now, not every locale is able to translate the whole of core yet, but if they had more contributors, then they could do just that. So it would be lovely if you haven't translated before, but you are skilled in translating a language other than English. Then find out what your locale is, find out where they've got to, and just get involved. there is so much help available, and there are videos to help you do it. There's lots of other people who will just go, yes, here's what you need to do. And even more importantly, just like in core when you're testing, there are other people who are more experienced and who will come and say, okay, this maybe needed to be tweaked, or you might need to put this bug in a little bit more information. So you're never on your own. There's always people to help. And if you're really enthused by doing translation, you can just start with basic things. You don't have to start with translating core. But the more languages that we can translate WordPress into, and that's not just in terms of the software, but that's also in terms of things like Learn WordPress, which Courtney's going to share more with you about as well. And also documentation, our news releases as the project are also translated. So there are so many opportunities. If you believe in diversity in WordPress, which I'm sure everybody here does, there are opportunities to translate the materials for those too. And quite often people will start with translating something else and go on to translate core. And of course, we have a WordPress translation day every day. It feels like every day sometimes, but I really need to get some sleep at some point. Every year. And it's normally around September the 30th. And you can follow all the information about that by hashtag WP Translation Day. So, you know, there are millions of contributors literally are involved in open source projects. It is so much fun and so much learning, and you get to work with the really cool people who, like Courtney, like Anne, who I think has just joined, and probably telling me off that I've got the wrong development side, which I apologize. I'm going to have to buy her cake now. And but it is a lot of fun. I think hopefully you can tell from my voice that if it wasn't something that you got energy from and that you saw grow and find opportunities for people who don't have access to other kinds of software, then this is why people do it, because it is this enormous community that you'll never see everybody who is involved or who will benefit. But by taking part and learning about the release, you can do that. There are a couple more links that I'm going to share with you in the chat. And there's also someone just sent me a Slack message who was on the Boulder onto the Make course Slack, which is great, asking about performance improvements that are in 5.9. So I'm going to share that in the chat as well. There are, for every feature that appears in 5.9, there is a development note. And all those development notes go into the field guide. And for those who may not have seen it, I think I've shared it in the chat at the beginning of this meeting. Those field notes will continue to be written as we go towards the release. And they really are great because you can take an area that as a developer, you think, actually, I need to know the real detail of this. That's what a dev note does. And if you read it and feel inspired, the documentation team are always looking for people who can come and help write that documentation as well. And then you can come and help the Learn WordPress, where we're always looking for people to come and help make videos or make content about what's in the release. And it's something that we're recruiting for at the moment as well in all the teams. And if that wasn't enough, and if you haven't been so enthused and thinking, right, I want to help in all these different areas, you can also help by sharing with your local meetup. So if this isn't your local area and you are involved with a meetup somewhere else, we have meetup talking points. Again, I'll share that link in the chat. And you can take that to your local meetup. We're going to create a presentation that you can do as well with some image files and making it a bit easier for meetups and meetup organizers to share what's in the meetup, what's in the release, to take an element of a feature and go, okay, this is how you do the new navigation block. And it can really be a great learning opportunity, and it can hopefully take some of the strain away from the organizers as well. And with Learn WordPress, we're going to be having a lot more of these courses available as well, that in the future that you will be able to access for free. And I know Courtney's going to have lots of information for you on that as well. And we're also creating social media amplification pack, as we did for 5.8. And Boulder, thank you very much for helping us promote that last year. So you're going to have a really, really easy page on the website where you can just press retweet from your Meetup social, from your own social, for your company social that you deal with WordPress. And you can share the information about the different features, get other people excited about what is coming in WordPress. And we're all going to have all those things available for you. And we really, really hope that they will be something that's useful. We've listened to all the feedback from Meetups about what would be useful. We've tried to incorporate that. But if there's other things, come and chat with me here on the meeting, or come and tell us in marketing on the Make WordPress Slack, and we'll pass it on to the relevant team. There is so many ways to get involved.
I think you're just a great introduction to the whole panel.
I think I need to have chocolate beforehand at 1 o'clock in the morning. I think that's my learning for next time.
This is awesome. I am going to remove the spotlight here.
Thank you.
And then, yes, you're like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Now I can just relax and fall asleep if I need to. And I'm going to move on to our first questions in our Q&A that I kind of flung together a few weeks ago. One, of course, big question that always comes up amongst everyone when we see a big release, when we get to that point, something, not the patches, but this big, like from 5.8 to 5.9 is this going to break my site? That's always like the fear. So who would like to tackle that question? Birgit, do you want to go?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So unless you so the WordPress 5.9 does not have any breaking changes to your existing site. So if you are not changing your theme on your site to a block theme, which are now 37 in the repository, to try out the site editor and all the other good stuff that's coming, you will be just fine. There is nothing that's going to break your site. Well, it's a promise that I know. I'm not sure I'm in control of keeping it, but at least those features that come with Gutenberg or the block editor that in 5.9, those are, unless you switch them on, they're all opt-in, and your current site will not be affected by that. So to get that out of the way, thank you for sharing the link to the theme, the block themes that are already in the repository. There are quite a few, and they are all with a lot of creativity, and I love how this creativity is sparked by this new way of doing themes, this easier way of themes. But that gets us to the next question.
Yes, and I am going to, I think I'll jump ahead, to the what does full site editing mean? And I'm going to put this to Brian, because I think Brian is an expert theme creator. Like you come from our old universe. Like, what is this new thing we're stepping into here with themes and full site editing?
Yes, good question. So for context, I've been building WordPress themes from a sort of product mindset for 15 years, and I have been around since the early days of WordPress when it was used traditionally as a blogging software, and have helped it evolve to a point where it's at now. Full site editing is, I'm just going to read it. I just put a little blog post up on my site about this, and so I grabbed a quote from the Block Editor Handbook. And I'll read that because to me, it made the most sense. It says, at the highest level, the vision of full site editing is to provide a collection of features that bring the familiar experience and extendability of blocks to all parts of your site rather than just posts and pages. So I'll break that down a little bit. Typically, WordPress users are familiar with the editor, right? Before block editor, before Gutenberg, sort of it was the classic editor. So it was predominantly just, I'm going to write my content, maybe use a little bit of custom HTML to kind of style things or arrange things a little bit. And that ultimately sort of morphed into the evolution of what we see as page builders. And so there was a market that kind of came about that allowed you sort of within the dashboard to build a site more than just writing like blog post content or whatever. And so WordPress has sort of identified that as a need. Thank you to Wix and Squarespace and other platforms out there that sort of served up this capability for users to just kind of move things around and build it themselves. And so WordPress has introduced Gutenberg, which is sort of the block editor, sort of a paradigm shift. So instead of writing long form copy in WordPress, now you're using blocks to put specific things in specific places. And essentially what full site editing does is it allows you from top to bottom of your website, including header, including footer, and every sort of thing in between. It allows you to build that through the dashboard in a way that is getting towards intuitive, right? We're not quite fully there yet, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited for building things in a way that users will use them differently than they ever have. And as a person who's been around since basically it was like pen and paper with WordPress to where it's at now, I'm thrilled to still be a part of it.
You know, I was wondering if perhaps I should just share my screen and just show just very briefly what that full site, that editor new thing that people might see. So let me open up my test site. I'm going to take it back to the dashboard here first. Okay, let me just share my screen. And again, I will have future meetups about this where we just go into depth on each of the features with full site editing. But here I just have WordPress installed. The release candidate 2, release candidate 3 comes out tomorrow. So if you can test, wait to test that tomorrow. So now under appearance, you know, we used to have customizers kind of gone. Is that I'm correct in that that's not there?
Good question, Angela.
Yeah.
There is a link, I believe, in our sheet. If not, I will make sure you get it. Basically, customizer is not necessary as much for laying out your site as you start demonstrating that. With customizer, if you've got a plugin that tucks stuff into customizer will show and let you get at that plugin's features. But customizer, as you know before, if you're using a block theme, you will have other ways to control all of those same things with what you're about to show us.
Okay, great. And again, I just literally installed this like 2 hours before we started this meetup. So this is new. We're all doing this together. Here's the lean, clean, mean fighting machine that is WordPress 5.9. You go to appearance, you have the option still to add themes. I downloaded, installed the 2022 theme because you really do need a full site editing theme installed to see, you know, kind of this new editing feature. But you have this new editor. You can toggle open the navigation because you can kind of see what you're working with the editor, but you can edit what's in the header. So you'll see when I click the header area, there's header instead of page is highlighted. And then I can actually add navigation menu items directly in the header. I can change my logo right here. I don't have to go to customizer. I don't have to go to a separate area in a page builder to edit my header. It's all right here. And then from here, you can also edit the various templates that are part of your theme, you know, your standard page, post, archive templates, as well as the template parts, which in this case is the header and footer. And so that's just very basically what full site editing looks like at this point. So you can also do the footer. So is there anything else I should show while I'm here, Courtney, or is this?
Yeah, 2 quick things. Do you see the stacked 3 lines at the top in the white navigation.
Yes.
Yes, there. List view. List view is going to be your friend. If you need, you could get this also in your regular post editor as well. The list view is available both when you're editing the whole site or just inside a single post or a single page. That one I would draw attention to, because sometimes when you want to get at a specific block, it gets hard to get to the thing that you want to get to. So list view, absolutely. I would also draw attention to, on the right-hand side, you see a circle with half of it filled in. That is our styles. Yeah, close out all that welcome stuff. And you've got 4 basic areas that are here: typography, colors, and layout. The changes you make here, and those, especially in those top 3, but really all of these, will impact everything on your site. So if you want to go style up a pull quote or something like that, you would go here to impact everything on your site. You may have heard the term global styles. We're calling that button just styles this time, but the idea is this impacts all of your site. So just keep that in mind when you're coming here. But you can explore those areas while we are in those styles. Let's hit to the left of colors. We see a caret. There you go. Okay. So go ahead, back out using that left caret. Yes. At the bottom under blocks, go into there. And this is a way to style how a block appears every time that you put it on your site.
Like the button block.
Yes.
I always have to do that in CSS, and it's such a pain. And it's like, and it's like the last thing I end up styling. It's like, oh, I got to go style that button block in CSS. Yes. Okay. So here I can do my button right here. I can just say what the background color is going to be.
Right. Yeah. So those would be, I think, maybe some newer parts that folks should draw attention to. This is how you really get your hands into styling all the things that you want, laying it out exactly as you would like. And of course, our normal settings toggle is there as well, in between that save and the styles button.
Yes. And
let me jump in really quickly.
Yeah,
just
cording up again. Okay. Yes. So was everyone able to hear what Brian was saying, even though I went offline?
Yes.
Good.
You're good.
I'm glad to be redundant.
Before you move off that page, while people can see the navigation on the left-hand side, there are some really cool features that are in the full site editing theme there as well. So people can actually go to their navigation there, and they don't have to. One of the good things about this release is that you don't have to go back lots of steps for everything. You don't have to go into CSS to do quite a few things, as Courtney's just shown with buttons and things. And it's the beginning of FSE.
Okay.
And there is an FSE Experiment outreach channel in makewordpress.org. So if you want to see where full site editing is going and just how dynamic and amazing it's going to be, and it really is going to change and is changing what you can do with WordPress, then that is the place to go. There's also lots of updates about some of these new features in that channel as well. Great. And you can test the more advanced ones too.
This is cool. So just as a kind of a contextual thing for what I'm working on now, I'm not working on a specific page on the site right now. This is more just sort of like, I believe, like the page template, because it has some generic things like the post title, post featured image, separator, post content, post comments. So this is more like a template for a page template. And
yes, that is correct.
Yeah. And then I can see the header. I don't have to exit to edit the header, exit to edit the footer. So
you can also choose in that drop down in the middle where it says page, you could also choose to toggle between those areas there too.
So, and what's interesting too, is I just edited the footer and I did edit the navigation, and it's kind of letting me know you did that, do you really want to do that? And so then you can save. And then, so then I could maybe go and
go to Angela. Click on the single post. Just I'll give an example. Click on single post and I'll give an example. And then, open that up and scroll down to where you see post comments, probably towards the bottom. Like, so for instance, if you wanted to disable comments, there's probably a couple of ways to do this, but if you wanted to disable comments, like in other words, knock the comment block and form and all of that completely off of your blog, you would hit that and then you would just literally delete it and then resave it. And then that single post template, which is used on every blog post on your website, will no longer output post comments. And likewise, if you wanted to move like the entry meta above the post content, you would literally just select that group and kind of use the up arrow and you can move things around that way. Yeah, you could drag and drop too. So like if you wanted that underneath your post title on every blog post, you would do it here.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then probably a question I would have at this point is I see this is slightly indented from my post title. So I would probably say something to the effect of like, well, I'd really like this group to not be indented. So that could be part of what we will do when we do some demos as our meetup, is we can play with just, dragging things around, play with alignment, have people maybe in our meetup command us to do things and figure it out. But I think it's all, even if you're not planning to take advantage of the full site editing right now with your current site, but you're someone who wants to do this in the future, I think having a local install of WordPress, which the Learn documentation provides instructions for, will give you a little sandbox area that you can play with all of these fun features and not worry about breaking your current site, but kind of get to learn what's new and upcoming in WordPress.
And
so
it really is a great way of doing it, because we have a lot of people, especially as part of what we're doing in marketing, is to highlight that exactly that, and for encouraging meetups to do that. So to actually have a site that is running a 5.9, running an FSE theme, and to practice so that they can help people find their way around it, get more comfortable, because we know not everybody is going to update the release on the day we go live. And it's amazing to see how fast it does get downloaded, but that's only going to be a fraction. But it is a great way of doing it. And also you may spot something and think actually a really good enhancement would be this. And that's an opportunity to go, and it could be, and that for many meetups we've already found, that has been the way that they've got involved with the FSE experiment.
So we ended up covering a lot in just that one little demo. We covered number 7. Let's talk about global styles. Do you feel, Courtney, that we discussed enough about the global styles there?
Yeah, I would like to just draw a quick bit of attention. I'll drop a link here on learn.wordpress.org. We have resources for, there are a couple content types going on Learn. If you're familiar, let me first introduce Learn. Learn.wordpress.org is in the navigation menu when you go to wordpress.org. And if you're in your administration editor, when you look over the events where it says like upcoming events and news, those events are coming from learn.wordpress.org. So it is high priority in the WordPress project. It is a place to go to learn all the things about WordPress and also to help other people learn. We have lesson plans that are aimed for meetup organizers or other training facilitators to use when teaching people about WordPress. We have workshops, which are more bite-sized ways of consuming the content directly yourself, or a resource that you can have somebody else watch that video. So if you have clients that need to learn something, maybe send them the video that's right from here. And we have social learning spaces. You might have seen the name discussion groups previously. There are social learning spaces these days. It's similar to what we're doing tonight. It's we've got Birgit with us, who is going to be running a few of them in the near future and has run, I think, a few already. So that's a time where you can come and somebody can present a specific topic and you can ask questions about that topic. And we also have courses, and there is a specific course that is all about full site editing, if you would like to learn more at a slower but more thorough pace than tonight. The workshops will give you just a few small pieces at a time. The course will give you, here is everything FSE, work through it at your own pace. So I'd highly encourage you that if you're feeling like, wow, this is a lot, check out some of these great resources that are available to you, and feel free to share them with your clients and whomever else that you're helping with WordPress.
Yeah, and I just dropped a link to those social learning opportunities. There's a nice little calendar on the website and just shows some demos. And this is awesome. I had no idea these existed, and I'm so excited about them.
We're seeking presenters. So if you're interested in presenting, learn.wordpress.org/contribute.
That's so fabulous. I am going to jump to, I may come back, I'll come back to the navigation, but what improvements to the Gutenberg editor are you most excited about? Because we're all, even if we're not using the full site editing yet, I think most of us, many of us, I should say, are using Gutenberg for our, at least for our blog posts, you know, to format blog posts and stuff. And we love when things improve with that. So Birgit and Brian, what are your new favorite features?
Yeah, so my new favorite feature is definitely the site editor with all the good styling of my website. But apart from that, the gallery block has been refactored, meaning rewritten. And it now sports, instead of just the images, there are now image blocks inside the gallery block. So you could get every picture a different style. You have all the features that you have on an image block, like cropping, like resizing, duotone, you can different styles like the round style or different shapes. You can apply them to each of the gallery blocks now, and that is such a great new feature. And then a pivot of the gallery block that we were waiting for probably 10 years. Yeah, you don't need additional plugins to have a beautiful gallery block now. So that's my favorite feature. I also like the list view, where you can, when you click on it, it kind of gives you a different color scheme, so you know exactly how deep you are in the nested blocks. Like in a columns block where you have columns and then a cover and then a picture. It's much easier to organize that, and you can drag and drop things. So if you are all the way down to the website or the page and say, okay, I want this to be actually on top, you don't have to drag that selection of blocks all the way. You just do it on the list view, and it follows your path there. It's much easier to do than on the canvas itself. So that should be my two features.
I'm going to do a quick screen share of Justin Tadlock on WP Tavern just did a night. I put the link to this in the chat. But he has a nice preview of what you just talked about being able to set the sizing and all these image settings, but creating a bit of whimsy. Like, look at that, being able to tilt. I mean, how fun is that? We're alternating, like you said, the different shapes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's just all quit our day jobs and become photographers and create like photo blogs or blogs. I mean, I just want to play with this all day. I think that's really fun.
And I have actually.
You have. It's like your job or something. Brian, what's your favorite block these days?
Favorite block? This is going to be a little bit nerdy, and it's not quite new. But Nick Diego just hit me up and he wants me to say the row block. That's his favorite block. My favorite block is the group block that came out a few versions ago. And why two reasons why it's my favorite block. One, it's sort of made into core what was being built by several block plugins that, basically had a container block that would wrap everything. And when WordPress core added that, all of a sudden it opened up the Pandora's box of being able to do things like create block patterns. And I'll explain what that is here in just a second. But what the group block does is it basically allows you to wrap a group of blocks. And so in what we're calling them now, sort of block patterns, and what these are pre-configured arrangements of content layouts and stuff like that, which really sort of was like paramount to me, sort of really embracing where Gutenberg, the editor, and all that stuff is going. But it also opens the imagination to create a theme or experiences where you can allow people to build full-on websites or custom homepages in literally 20 seconds by just clicking these patterns, which insert, maybe it's media and text, and then below that it's 3 columns of testimonials and stuff like that. And as a product person and somebody who likes to build for builders, this is just, it's like a kid in a candy store, right? Because now it allows us to sort of be very imaginative with how we want to present content, and of course pair that with styling, global styles, and theme JSON, which is another one of my favorite new things. We saw that in 5.8, but in 5.9, the controls for theme JSON, which is essentially the replacement to style sheets and the need to host multiple style sheets for front end and back end parity and stuff like that. So it's taken us some time to get to this point, but as someone who's been in the industry for a decade and a half, I have never been more excited about WordPress than I am right now.
That's so amazing. And, in terms of the practicality of the group block, that's something that we talked about when Gutenberg was very first released, where it couldn't replace the page builders yet because you didn't have a way of putting blocks inside of, in a container, so that container might have a background image or a background color, and then you'd have some blocks in there. And we kind of saw that when I was showing the full site editing tool, where when I moved the metadata block, it was a whole group of stuff that was in the meta, and I could move that whole group together rather than, even if they weren't styled with the same background or something, it would have been more tedious to have to move each and every little element that was in there. So yeah, even with working with tools like even InDesign and Illustrator and all of our old design tools, we had ways of grouping things and keeping them together to be able to move them around. But I think it makes it a little bit more competitive than with the page builders. Yeah, like that. So let's see, our next question is
and just before you go on to that,
with
patterns, you can also submit your own patterns. So
yes,
and that's going to be really a big opportunity for people. So
say more about that.
So there's a pattern directory. I've put it in the chat for anybody, and it'll link to where it is too. But so you can pick from a library of existing reusable patterns, but you can also build your own, and that is open to everyone. So you can share those patterns and you submit them to the pattern directory, and assuming that they meet all the standards that they need to, then hopefully you'll see other people being able to use them. And that's just quite a massively new thing. And it will just open up how we use WordPress in terms of design and how we think of where and how content is viewed.
That is amazing. That is super cool.
And Anne's just shared in the chat that the pattern submissions will be open 2 weeks or so after 5.9. So you've only got 2 weeks to wait. And it's some really good inspirations, patterns that you can already look at and get your thinking caps on to what you might like to do yourself.
I'm going to go back to the question that I skipped, was what's coming for navigation? And my question was, I read something like that it had been moved to a future release, some sort of big navigation thing. Like, what's going on with that, Birgit?
Well, the navigation part for block editor had 2 components. One was the navigation block, and that is coming to 5.9.
Okay.
The other part that was not, that didn't make it in the quality that the developers wanted it, was the navigation editor screen. So similar to the widget screen, you get the widget blocks, and then you also get an editor with which you can edit the widgets. That is planned, I think, for 6.0 to have also an admin navigation screen where you can edit the menus and certain other things on the navigation. But right now, everything is in the navigation block.
Okay.
And there is a support article about the navigation block. I think you have it in the link there in the document, but I'm going to share it in the chat as well, because it works a little bit different than the menus that you
Yes.
know now. But it also opens up the navigation block, so you can add a search button to it. You can also add site logos and site name or a site title to it, so it kind of can form the header just with a navigation block. So it's a little bit, it's the first version of it, so it might be sometimes a little bit frustrating to use it until you get it. But thanks to Anne McCarthy, and she's here and she's kind of keeping quiet, which is a bit unusual for her. But thank you so much. She has put quite a lot of time into putting the end user documentation on the support forums or sites ahead of the release, which is actually something new for the Gutenberg project, that end user documentation is actually available ahead of time. So huge kudos to Anne McCarthy, who made this possible. So all the, not only developers get the dev notes, but also for the end users, there is a few things, because of course the new features, there are quite a few new concepts that need to be explained, and sometimes you need to read the documentation to see it all kind of work together. Yeah.
I appreciate everything you just said, because of course the first thing I did when I did this install of this demo is I tried to do the navigation. I'm like, I don't get it, and where's my appearance menus, and this is frustrating and I don't like it, and so I just have to be a little patient for that new interface to come out. Okay.
Yeah, not every interface is backwards compatible. Yeah, the functionality is, so you find your menus that you already created, you can use them in your navigation block, but it's not all one-to-one in feature parity yet.
Yeah, I feel like we'll have to have Anne on for a future meetup when that comes out, just to talk to us all about navigation.
There's also the link she's just put in about accessibility, and there's some accessibility improvements with the navigation block that people can find out about as well.
Fabulous. I just added that to the Google Doc too. Let's see. Brian, Brian and Birgit, in court, whoever wants to jump in on this topic is, what can we expect of themes? Because a theme is no longer a theme anymore. There's like, I have 4 different types of themes, and I feel like, especially for people who aren't in the know, it's like we need to break this down.
So let's give props to Anne for this.
And Anne, you're welcome to show your face and talk. We'd love to hear from you. Say hi to us.
Embarrassing. Hi.
So I've been assisting in testing things. Anne has published a lot of really good...
in witness protection. You need to see that.
So about a year ago, I was teaching in a boot camp, and I wandered and bumped across Anne during that time, and found out that I could take my students through all the testing that Abha was talking about at the beginning. We just did that in WordPress 5.8 right before it came out. And soon after that, we started seeing sort of a breakdown of how we explain themes. And if you think about the post editor, we went from calling it just the post editor to either classic editor or block editor, right? And that's about what we're seeing happening with themes. And I've asked Anne all of these great questions, and I just totally lifted this stuff off of her post. And props to her. There's a link to that as well. So a classic theme, that's what you've known for a long time, going all the way back to the ones that like the default theme, the original Kubrick kind of theme. Those are classic themes. And I would even consider, if you've learned underscores to build a theme, I don't know how many in this crowd have, but that is a more of a theme framework to build a classic theme, right? That's where we've been. Whereas block themes are where we're headed with newer themes. And 2022 is a good example of a block theme. I hear Frost WP is awesome. And I saw a big Twitter thread today from Daniel testing out Frost WP, which is Ryan's latest theme, but also block-based. And there's a lot of really good themes in that tag that I shared for the themes repo that people can feel free to test out block themes. In between the two, we've got some nuances. I hear, but have not tested to completely confirm that Astra would meet the what's a hybrid theme. And so a hybrid theme means you're adopting some of the parts. Maybe you've got the template editor that looks like it's part of full site editing, but you don't have everything else. You only have some features from full site editing that are moved in. And then universal themes are those that are going to use both approaches simultaneously. And one to check out in that category would be block-based. So in block-based, you could still get at some things through the customizer, not as many. Let's see if I did justice on explaining that. Please confirm for me, Anne.
Yeah, I will confirm, and I'll also drop a link to a post I wrote in September. I probably need to do an update, but for people who actually want to dig into what that adoption might look like, I wrote a post kind of explaining the different ways folks can adopt this stuff, because it is confusing. And I saw it's like, ooh, that sounds like a good time for users. It actually could be, because sometimes they might want access to certain things, but not everything that full siting can provide. So I think in some cases it might make sense as part of gradual adoption, but it's not going to make sense for everyone. And I think that's one of the things I'm really excited about with these features, is that there is optionality. And I thought it was a big lesson that was learned with 5.0, but I'm going to leave it to the panelists because y'all are brilliant. So thanks for the shout outs.
Brian, have you been playing with making block themes? What, are you still a themer?
Still a themer. It is one of my goals in life to cannibalize anything other than classic theme and block theme, right? A hybrid and universal themes are sort of intermediary things that we have to call them, because with WordPress taking as long as it has to sort of push out some of these features, there's been sort of this in-between time where you're able to, as we started with Frost, basically taking a classic theme, start to introduce some of the features. Theme JSON was an example, something that we had put into Frost, which was a sort of traditional PHP file-based theme. And so that's kind of what we're calling, I guess that's the hybrid theme. But right now, what we're doing with Frost is we completely are embracing WordPress 5.9 and beyond, full site editing. Frost is a fully baked full site editing theme, block theme. It is not a PHP based theme. It's not a universal. It's not a hybrid. It's none of those things, because we believe in living on the edge. So that's all I will ever touch moving forward, is embracing, especially with 5.9 shipping and the Gutenberg plugin, allowing us to sort of follow along the development of all of the features that are coming. We'll be ready to share, to help people understand what's coming, how we recently announced at WP Engine that Frost sort of came over and is becoming an open source theme currently on GitHub. We're hoping to get it in the repository so that anybody can just use it, download it in the same way that we did 2022, which has served as a huge guide for us as we built. Watching the team build that theme has allowed us to do certain things, and it's the future. I've told several people in several meetups lately that full site editing and block-based things are the way WordPress is going. And, it's easy for me to say this, but I mean, the time to have started was 6 months ago, but it's never too late. And 5.9 hasn't shipped yet. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity once it hits and it comes out sort of in a stable format to really just learn from what people are doing and sharing, and can't wait to see sort of the explosion. I feel like a lot of people are sort of like kind of hanging on until it's released before they start doing a lot of stuff, whether it's product-based or information-based, just because they want to do that sort of on a stable platform. But yeah.
Someone asked, where does the departure from traditional themes leave Genesis as a product line? Oh, we're just going to put you on the hot seat now.
I'm going to put two little eyes in the emoji. So for context, Nick Diego and I, Nick's on this call also, we are on the developer relations side of WordPress, WP Engine. And so the Genesis framework, as we've known it traditionally, will at some point sort of become a non-developed product, only because much of what full site editing does inside of WordPress sort of cannibalizes a lot of that value that Genesis brought, which was markup and the ability to move things around via hooks and filters and so on. And so as we've also talked about, WordPress and Genesis has traditionally been very backward compatible. And so we expect Genesis based themes to work years into the future. So there's no need to jump off and like switch right away just because. Now, if you want to try something new or live on the edge or so on, then there's certainly going to be through Frost and other things that we're working on, opportunities to do that, right? If you want to try something new. I don't know exactly what the Genesis team is going to be doing specifically around Genesis, but I do know that we've been working with them just in general, kind of through Frost, identifying where the opportunities lie and what we can bring to the community.
That's a great wrap up for that. Yeah. Is anyone have anything to say about the 2022 theme? I know there's probably was a lot of effort put into the developing of that theme, and I'm just curious if anyone has anything specific to say about it.
It has lots of patterns.
Okay.
I counted them. There's like 70, and it's a great theme. But when I went through it, not only are you getting with themes as things are coming out, not only are you getting these new ways to edit the things, but patterns are really a whole new area, because think of it as that same format you want to apply, but only to part of a post, a page, but many times over, and just swap what the images and the text say in that area. So when we're looking at themes, not only are you looking at, is the page laid out well, the front page that you get in those demos, but as you are making more pages, as you're making more content throughout your site, you'll want to notice how many patterns, and do you like also the patterns that a theme comes with? And that was something that really drew my attention inside of 2022.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, pattern is really a great way to also update themes. So think of it, a blog theme, it gets into the hand of a user, and all of a sudden the things that come with the theme, like a header and footer, are now designed by the user. And then the theme developer sends an update, and these updates will not show in your theme because the user's design actually takes precedence over the theme. So the upgrade path for theme developers will be to issue new patterns. So you get in the in the new design kind of thing in your site as well, so you can use it. So there will be a two-pronged approach to updates to the theme if you have additional designs or so, or styles in the theme. That one part is for the new user that installs the theme and starts working on it, and then for the user who have used the theme quite a bit, have modified through the site editor to actually update it with the block pattern, rather than waiting for the updates to shine through, which might not actually happen. And I think there's quite a some tension there that we will work out after 6.0. I think that we need to kind of see what happens when a user does this and that, and how does the theme then evolve from that. I can see that. I'm not sure, but I think with all the bleeding edge things that come with 5.9, a few people might get a little bit of an anxiety going. So especially developers who have themes that are sold, that a lot of people use, and they have to keep up with it, they will. So going hybrid with a classic theme is actually not a bad idea. It doesn't mean that site editing will be part of your theme, but you can use the theme JSON file in your root directory, and then control how the block editor behaves with your theme, with very few changes to the theme JSON, rather than doing it through the CSS. So one example that I have is that if you put it in the functions file, you have to handle your color palette in the functions file, and then also in the CSS file. With the theme JSON, you do it in one place in the theme JSON file, and then it will automatically kind of propagate through the cascading style sheets as well. So there are a few advantages to the new features that are in 5.8, now in 5.9, the theme JSON has a new version, but also for the classic themes, because not everybody can swap out a theme, or every site can swap up a new theme at a whim. Yeah, there are a few things that are still need to be worked out, which is custom post types. It's certain other plugins, how they work with the theme or with your site. That can take definitely a few more years, where everything kind of stays around, that you can still use classic themes and even the classic editor. So just to kind of calm those nerves from a few WordPress users, that I get it quite a few times, that there's is my site gonna break, or I have to learn new things. Do it at your own pace. That's the only, these are just offerings from the WordPress team. You don't have to jump on it right away.
That is fabulous. And I love that you jumped into some of those, what developers have to look forward to. I am going to spotlight Brian. Brian is going to share something with us. And are you able to screenshot? Did I make you,
No,
did I make you a co-host? Let me make you a co-host.
Yeah, you need to enable that.
Okay. Got you there. Okay.
Okay, so just to give a visual of what we're talking about with patterns and the ability to kind of bring things in groups, as I had mentioned earlier, I thought I would, and I don't feel dirty doing this, right? Because Frost is no longer a commoditizable product and it's open source. So I'm going to use this as an example just because we built it, but I think it's a good visual. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so I am now in creating a blank page. And so this is what the page looks like. It's got a header and a footer. There's nothing been added yet. But what the power of WordPress is going towards is the ability to view, these are all patterns, right? So if I wanted to add a call to action section, I could hit add pattern, it would show up. I could customize the text, change the link colors, and so on. And so each one of these are categories of different patterns that can be one-click inserted. I'm going to even go so far as to what's called a full page pattern, which is like the ability to, with one click, basically bring in an entire page worth of patterns. And so I'm going to do that really quickly, which I just inserted that. I'm going to hit save. And just to show, in one click, this is when I realized the power of this, I was like, this is absolutely game changing. So in one click, I brought in this full pattern, this full page pattern. And so for instance, maybe I am developing a site for the Kansas City Royals. And so what I want to do is make this section maybe blue. Accessibility wizards will say that's not quite the right blue, but whatever. But now I want to move that around. So I'm going to move that down a couple slots. And so each one of these are wrapped in a group, which is why I like the group block so much, right? Because this is a media and text block right here. If I wanted to change the color of the button, I could make it gray, I could make it black, change the text to white, sort of a thing, hit save, and all of a sudden you've got that. And this is really, or maybe, you know, this section here, this white section, you know, I don't think I need that. So I'm going to come down here, select the group, and just knock it off like that. And this is really the power of where WordPress is going, is it allows you to build these things very quickly. And so 2022 has a great selection of patterns. Frost has a great selection of patterns. The Frost ones are a little bit more wireframe, kind of just meant on purpose to be sort of black and white, so you can just get started. But this is sort of like a real world example of a theme that allows you to do these things, right? Block editing, full site editing theme allows you to insert these patterns, move them around, edit things at your will. And given the process by which it would have taken to create, and you could do this on multiple pages, like maybe in StudioPress, we used to always get this question. I like the home page, but I want to like clone it to like an about page and have the same layout. Like, okay, so what you have to do is you have to register a new page template. You have to create more widget areas. You have to do all of these things that are like through FTP, where with the way WordPress is going, you just add a new page, make it, you know, build it with patterns, and then hit publish. Like that to me is it's amazing.
That is, it's super exciting, and I am very much an Elementor person, and it's like WordPress is catching up with the theme builders, or the page builders, which also sometimes are referred to as theme builders because they've taken out a lot of that theming functionality. So WordPress is catching up, but hopefully in a lighter way, a more efficient way, we would hope. And let's see, I love the patterns. I have so many questions about patterns. I think we're going to have to do a whole meetup just on creating and sharing patterns, because that is super cool. We were going to wrap up at 7:30, and I think we covered almost all of the questions that I had in our document. I did have the question about what do developers have to look forward to. I think Birgit addressed some of that. I don't know if Anne or Courtney or Brian, any one of you have anything that you feel like developers could, developers, but also themers. Like I'm more of a front end person, like I'm used to doing, all that page layout and stuff, but I also want to be able to create those recyclable block patterns and stuff. And how easy is it going to be for us kind of HTML, CSS savvy people to be able to do some of this stuff?
I kind of think of it like there's two types of developers in my head that I would say. There's the low coders. They might be folks that get a theme and then customize the theme from there. Whereas I would consider maybe more advanced devs, like I'm going to create an entire theme totally from scratch for a very unique purpose. For the low coders, what's really exciting for them is they can control things like tweaking the site logo or changing the footer or some things with the block editor experience. They don't need to touch PHP. In fact, I shared an article that's a low code approach. If you want to register your own block pattern, you want a block pattern that didn't come with your theme, and you want that to be available repeatedly through your site, well, there's a low code way for that. There's a plugin for that technically. But I have an article that will walk you through that process. And then advanced developers that are really comfortable out in JavaScript, React, where you want one single place to fuss around with your CSS. I think that there's going to be some really good stuff inside of that theme JSON file. I think that building a theme from scratch when you happen to have learned JavaScript deeply, that you'll be excited about building themes from scratch out there too. It's what I think in part, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in part, this is what brought you back into the scene of the WordPress theme industry. It's exciting.
It is. And Jeff made a comment up earlier about the power of the copy and paste. And that was essentially what brought me in. I was never away. I was working in the real estate space, trying to do something different over there. And one night I landed on WP Tavern, and it was sort of the introduction of the pattern directory. And I went over there and I was like, okay, these patterns aren't for me because I just designed differently. But I was like, what does this do? What does this copy button for this pattern do? And at the same time, I was writing a blog post. I'm like, I'm going to copy this. And I went into my Genesis-based site and opened up a blog post and just hit paste. And it brought the pattern, basically took it from the directory on WordPress.org to my blog in one click. And that's when that night I had the epiphany. That was when Frost became like a thing where I was like, oh, I can create copy and pastable ways for people to build websites. And then you throw some design layer on top of that, some opinionated styles and colors and fonts. And I'm like, I'll use the word another revolution. I feel, and why I came back at the strength at which I did, this is a gold rush in the making for those who are in the WordPress industry, like we've not seen probably since the early days.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. And there are plugin developers out there, block builders. There's a new API to access the global styles and the settings with filters and hooks. And then there is in the dev notes take more control over your inner blocks. So if you have blocks that have inside other blocks, so you can, well, it's a lot of blocks. Yes, you can control them even better. And then you can also see, and that's probably also interesting for theme developers, to use multiple style sheets per block. So the block's style sheet is only loaded when you actually have it on canvas, and not anymore all the style sheets are loaded at the same time. There's also a new API or an extended API for locking blocks and templates. So the content can change, but you cannot remove blocks or move them around. And that is also available for developers. So there are quite a few
That's very
things
cool.
that have been, developers have been waiting for the Gutenberg or the block editor for a very long time. And 5.9, because now the foundations of all the things that a block editor could do on WordPress are kind of in there now, and now opening that up for plugin developers and theme developers on a code base is now beginning to shine through as well.
This so fabulous. We are getting close to time. There was questions about child themes. There were a couple other questions that came up in the chat. I think everyone was great about contributing to the chat and putting links. So I did put those links into the Google Docs. You will have kind of a collection of all the links, should be in that Google Doc that I shared, which I am going to share one more time in case anyone joined the meetup late. You will all have a link to the Google Doc with all of the links that were shared. And if I'll have the chat saved, so if I see any links that didn't get into there. I also wanted to give a shout out to Diego is having or Nick is having a meetup for the South Florida WordPress meetup group on he's kind of the WordPress mega meetup on block patterns in 5.9. So I'm going to put that again in the chat, because I think as meetup organizers, you know, we end up getting redundant to each other. So the more that we can, you know, kind of jump into other people's meetups and we don't have to reinvent the wheel, I think that's good. That's coming up this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be 3 p.m. Colorado time. But I am definitely going to try to hit up that meetup, because I think the more, like Birgit was saying earlier, and Courtney, kind of the more exposure you can get in little bite-sized pieces will be helpful, because it is all quite overwhelming. So if you can just kind of pop into some meetups, get a lot of repetition to what you're hearing, get a little bit more familiarity with some of these concepts and some of the new screen views and interfaces, I think that it will help you just adopt some things a little bit more easily, slowly over time. And
Angela, I'd also encourage people to once a week, I write a roundup post and I put that on post status of all the activity happening across all the different make.wordpress.org teams and all the things related. It's release season, so I am rolling some things over week until we get through the release. So if you want to explore all of the dev notes that are out there, if you want to see what are the new documentation articles that got published this week, I'm trying to collect all of that into a single spot so that you could see everything that's there. A few items that may not be pertinent to the release might roll off, but you could assume for the next couple of weeks, there's a new one every Wednesday going out. I do this every week, but during release season, it's hard to track all the moving parts. So there's a good spot for it.
do our panelists have any final words of just how we would like people to move forward?
There's a really good discussion that if people can join in, particularly if you're a developer, is I put a link in the chat, and it's about the timings for the 2022 releases. So if releases affect you, if their timings have a big effect on what you do or your users, then this is the discussion you need to be part of.
Oh, wonderful. Brian, do you have any final words for us?
Oh, I have a million, but we don't
Yeah.
have time for them all. I've tried to consolidate my best thoughts and the things I think will be most helpful here. I put a link in the chat for my Twitter. It's my job to reach out and talk to people. If somebody wants a one-on-one Zoom, hit me up. If we want to do a group thing, hit me up. I was hired by WP Engine to come in and really help sort of serve on behalf of them, sort of the conduit right between WordPress, the project, and the people who are using it. So I understand it. I am in it all day, every day. And so I take for granted what I know. And so I know that there are shortcomings and people may not understand the way that we've presented. So just hit me up if that's the case.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for just raising your hand and be like, I'll come, I'll be a panelist. And Courtney, me too. And Birgit, me too. Everyone's like, yes, let me in.
We got really lucky the Bachelor wasn't on tonight because that's normally our Monday thing. So as soon as we signed up and I saw the date, I was like, oh shoot, I told my wife and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I committed. And of course I love to do this and we would have taped it in. Football's on tonight. So we're not missing the Bachelor. So all is good.
That's so, yeah, it all worked out for all of us. Well, thank
Yes.
you all for being here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us or having me. The GutenbergTimes.com, we have a newsletter every week. The weekend edition, where it's a collection of all the links that on team that are for blog editor, but also from outside the community, tutorials and that. And then there's a Gutenberg changelog. That's more on the developer side. But if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to hit me up on Twitter and I'll answer it. And if I don't know, I track down who can answer it for sure, in a timely manner. So thank you all for being here and being so, these were wonderful questions from the chat. And I'm so glad that I was able to join a meetup again. Now that we are also WordCamp devoid of WordCamps, in-person meetups. Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, hit us up on thank you for correcting the link that on the podcast. Yes.
And Abha, thank you for hanging in there with us. You really do need to go to sleep.
We need to give her all the cake and chocolate.
All the cake and chocolate.
Tomorrow we'll give her a cup of whatever hot caffeine she likes.
Yeah, definitely. Can I have that now?
No, you have to go to bed.
Go to bed. And sleep
go
in
get the
tomorrow.
cake on the way, but yeah. I don't have it for you.
Well, I appreciate everyone in our community and for all of you hanging in here and being with us. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month. We're doing a little bit of an off-topic talk on the Myers-Briggs personality test and how it might help you working with your coworkers. And I think that'll be really fun. And then we should start learning some of that great learn.wordpress.org material. And Bethany and I, or anyone in our group who just wants to roll us through one of those lessons, will be welcome to do it. I think that'd be a great way to empower some of our other people who've been a little shy to present. We'll just give them a script and here, just read it, just take us through it.
And if they enjoy it, they can always volunteer to come and do some more.
That's right. We always want them to drink the Kool-Aid and join the club over there. So thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a lovely evening and hope to see you again very soon.